A football match helped start a war. At least that's how the story is usually told. Two neighboring countries, one World Cup qualifier. A few weeks later, soldiers crossed the border. Bombs fell, people died, and newspapers around the world rushed to a shocking conclusion. A football game had caused a war. It's a story so unbelievable that it sounds like fiction. But the truth is far more disturbing. Because football didn't create the conflict, the match simply exposed tensions that had been building for years. And when those tensions finally exploded, an entire region paid the price. This is the story of the football war. The conflict involved two Central American nations, El Salvador and Honduras. At first glance, they seemed similar. Both were relatively small countries, both struggled with poverty, both faced political instability, and both depended heavily on agriculture. But one major difference separated them: population. El Salvador had one of the highest population densities in the region. Land was scarce, jobs were limited, opportunities were increasingly difficult to find. Meanwhile, Honduras was much larger geographically and had more available land. As a result, hundreds of thousands of Salvadorans migrated into Honduras over the years. Many settled there legally, others did not. At first, the migration helped solve labor shortages, but over time, it created growing resentment, and that resentment would become explosive. By the 1960s, the situation was becoming increasingly tense. Many Honduran citizens believed Salvadoran immigrants were taking jobs and land. Political leaders faced pressure to act. At the same time, economic conditions were worsening. Land ownership became one of the biggest issues. Large landowners controlled enormous areas, while many ordinary families struggled to survive. Instead of addressing deeper economic problems, some politicians found an easier target: immigrants. Nationalist rhetoric increased. Public anger grew. The relationship between the two countries began deteriorating. Long before football entered the story, the foundations of conflict were already in place. The border was tense. Diplomatic relations were strained, and both governments faced growing internal pressure. The region was becoming a powder keg. It just needed a spark. That spark arrived in 1969. The two nations were scheduled to face each other during qualification matches for the 1970 FIFA World Cup. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a major sporting event. But these were not normal circumstances. The atmosphere was already hostile. Fans traveling between countries encountered intimidation and harassment. The media amplified every incident. National pride became deeply tied to the matches. When Honduras hosted the first game, tensions exploded. Reports emerged of fans harassing visiting players throughout the night. Crowds became increasingly aggressive. The match ended with a Honduran victory. Instead of easing tensions, it made everything worse. The next game would be even more volatile. When El Salvador hosted the return match, the atmosphere had transformed completely. This was no longer just sport. It was national identity, revenge, politics. Crowds filled stadiums. Newspapers published inflammatory stories. Politicians paid close attention. Every goal felt symbolic. Every defeat felt humiliating. El Salvador won the second match. The rivalry intensified. A deciding game was scheduled on neutral ground in Mexico City. The stakes felt enormous, not because of football itself, because millions of people had begun projecting years of frustration onto the sport. The matches became a stage for conflicts that had nothing to do with football, and once emotions reached that level, reason became difficult to maintain. The deciding match took place on June 27, 1969. The world watched. The pressure was immense. Both nations desperately wanted victory. After a dramatic contest, El Salvador won. Celebrations erupted, but so did anger. Diplomatic relations between the two countries collapsed shortly afterward. Each side blamed the other for violence and mistreatment. The football matches had become symbols of a much larger struggle, and now the political crisis was accelerating rapidly. The countdown to war had begun. Just weeks later, on July 14, 1969, war broke out. Salvadoran forces launched military operations against Honduras. Aircraft attacked targets. Ground troops crossed borders. Fighting spread rapidly. The conflict was relatively short, lasting roughly 100 hours, but the damage was significant. Thousands of people were killed or injured. Many more were displaced. Entire communities suffered. Families fled violence. Infrastructure was damaged. Lives were permanently changed. And around the world, the media gave the conflict a memorable name: the Football War, a name that would survive for decades. The problem is that the name creates a misunderstanding. Football didn't cause the war. The match didn't suddenly turn peaceful nations into enemies. The conflict existed long before the players entered the field. The real causes were far deeper. Immigration disputes, land ownership conflicts, economic hardship, nationalism, political pressure. The football matches simply provided a visible outlet for frustrations that were already reaching dangerous levels. In many ways, the games acted like a mirror. They reflected tensions that society had ignored for years, and once those tensions became public, events moved quickly, far too quickly. Today, the football war remains one of the strangest conflicts in modern history, a war forever linked to a sporting event, a reminder of how easily headlines can simplify complicated problems. Because football wasn't the cause, it was the trigger. The real conflict had been building quietly for years, underneath politics, underneath economics, underneath national identity. The matches simply brought those tensions into the open, and that's what makes this story so important. Not because a football game started a war, but because it shows how quickly ordinary events can become dangerous when deeper problems are left unresolved. The war wasn't really about football. Football just happened to be where the world finally noticed it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And what topic should we explore next? Let us know in the comments below.